All right. Cheers and salutations. Welcome, everybody, to this special late evening live stream. I usually don't do these, but with such two big speeches, this can't wait for the morning. And look, I had a lot of time to digest. I think we've all had a lot of time to digest what we've heard from both Prime Minister Netanyahu and soon to be former President Joe Biden. And there's a lot to unpack here, especially in regards to what will happen to our oh so sweet constitutional republic of ours. I want to say that things are going to get better, but I don't think anything will fundamentally change. And no matter who sits in the White House, it is abundantly clear that nothing will change because after the great George Carlin, just remember these words. It's one big club and you ain't in it. And may you never be in it because you'd have to give up so much to be associated with such pond scum that even calling these people who rule over us pond scum is an insult to pond scum. So welcome, everybody, for joining us. Usually we are live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Central on YouTube, Rumble, Rockfin, Odyssey, and Kick. This live stream is only live on YouTube, Rumble, and Kick as well. So if you haven't done so already, please hit the like button and please share our content on social media. So let's first address the one thing that caught everyone's attention. That is Netanyahu's speech before Congress, to which he got a standing ovation. I've never seen anybody get this kind of standing ovation. One would think that he is the president of our country. I can't think of any other foreign dignitary that would get this much of applause. But remember, folks, it has been made clear to those who have the courage to speak out that AIPAC, like any other lobby group, ensures that its babysitters are making sure that their targets, or the ones they're supposed to take care of, are well fed and know their orders. And what better way to show them following the orders? Because, like I always like to say, political police knocking at the door. Here's a prime example of our politicians following orders, or either that, knowing when to applause. Remember those good old-fashioned family sitcoms when they were filmed in front of a live studio audience and people would applaud? Here it is in real time.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister of the State of Israel.
Now, and there they are, the paid puppets, the paid people. They go by a name that some of our fellow Americans call them, representatives and senators, but they're puppets because they're following the orders. I won't be playing this video in its full entirety. It's 4 minutes of people clapping like seals. And if you sat through this speech like I did, it was embarrassing to watch. If it's not made clear that we live in an oligarchy and that the people who we think represent us are supposed to represent us are supposed to be honorable people, I'm so sorry. It's time to rip that Band-Aid off. You are not represented in the U.S. Senate or the House of Representatives. What you are is a participant in a system in which the oligarchs have tricked you into thinking you have a say. Remember, money is speech and corporations are people. And that means lobby groups like AIPAC and other adjacent groups can buy our politicians to do actions like this when they know when to applaud. In case you missed it, because I didn't. He almost tripped. He almost tripped. In case you missed it. One more time for the people who are just tuning in. If you ever wondered how our current Congress would ever react to a crisis situation like what's happened all over across the world throughout history, where there are tyrants and dictators and war crimes happening, now you know. Nothing would happen. They would still applaud. And I know it's rather disheartening to see this, but as we do speak, the death toll in Gaza is still rising up. All of Gaza is a moonscape. The Lancet report is to be believed 186 to 200,000 people could be dead, theoretically. That's 7%, and that number could rise up. Men, women, children are starving, and the war isn't going to be ending anytime soon. And so while this speech was happening with thunderous applause, something was happening outside. I want to play this video from Case Study QB. Please be sure to follow him on all social media. He's one of the dauntless few that actually sits through corporate media. I don't know how he does it, but he's dedicated.
Yeah, so we are seeing thousands of people here outside on the west front of the U.S. Capitol. What we're seeing here are protests that are pro-Israel, pro-Palestinian, all anti-Netanyahu, and all looking to bring the hostages home. I just want to give you a sense of what this looks like here. We're outside the federal courthouse in Washington, D.C. If we have a sense of what the city looks like here. These are folks from all over the country. Some of them tell me they have taken buses overnight to get here, some from Florida, some as far from Iowa to get here. And I want to show you what the police presence looks like out here, too. The entire U.S. Capitol is surrounded by these bike racks, as we see with police line do not cross. There's also a line of officers, both Metro Police Department from here in D.C., Capitol Police, the Department of Homeland Security, other agencies. And some of the security precautions that we're seeing out here include some of those Homeland Security drones that get put up at large events so they can see from above the overhead of what this protest looked like. This seems
Now everything looks calm here. Now, because of certain guidelines, because yes, we are live on YouTube, unfortunately, I can't show you when they're getting maced and sprayed. By the way, folks, water does not remove tear gas. That's not what you need to do. It is an oily substance that's supposed to stick on. But it does happen, and these protesters do get hit. But there are people out there speaking out against Netanyahu's speech before Congress. And to be clear here, yes, there were representatives and some U.S. senators in the Democratic Party that did not show up. And yes, even some few Republicans. But for the most part, all of Congress attended. All of the Senate attended to hear Netanyahu speak. Our government is bought. You don't have a say. And if you're a diehard Republican voter or a diehard Democrat voter, and you wish to yell and scream at hard-lens media or independent media as a whole, and yell at us saying that we're agitators or that we're double haters, if you think that you will have a say in your republic, you are not paying attention. You're playing your role as a good puppet. And I'm so sorry you haven't woken up yet. There's still time.
Seems like it has been largely a calm protest. We did get a report of pepper spray being used at the very front of the protest. We aren't sure exactly what the surrounding issues were with that, but for a moment, the police officers did put on their gas masks. As you can see, they are off now, so they are no longer wearing gas masks, but there's thousands of people. What these folks hope to do here is send a message to Benjamin Netanyahu. They want to cause what they call a citizen's arrest of Benjamin Netanyahu by surrounding the U.S. Capitol with folks. I'm not sure there's enough folks here to be actually able to do that. Also, the cops, I believe, are stopping them about halfway up the Capitol. But that's their goal. They want to send a message here loud and clear, Chris.
Now, I want to pull up this article here from RT, just to trigger the liberals. I'll just trigger everybody. Why not? Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has proposed the creation of a new military bloc modeled after NATO and called it, I hope you're sitting down, the Abraham Alliance, aimed against Iran. Because, hey, we got war in Ukraine, a crisis in Gaza, a genocide in Gaza, a potential conflict in Taiwan that's always brewing. We got a crisis in Yemen. So what's the difference of adding another war? A war against Iran. There will be no peace in our time, ever. Netanyahu spoke before a joint session of the United States Congress on Wednesday. It was his first address to American lawmakers, beating Winston Churchill's record. My goodness. Who would have thought? Although 70 House and Senate members declined to attend for one reason or another, America forged a security alliance in Europe to counter the growing Soviet threat. The Soviets are gone, Mr. Netanyahu. They're gone. Netanyahu said at one point, likewise, America and Israel today can forge a security alliance in the Middle East and counter the growing Iranian threat. Say it with me, people. What could possibly go wrong, especially all those beautiful people in the back? He said a glimpse of that alliance could be seen on April 14th when Iran launched a missile and drone attack against Israel, and the U.S. and UK helped shoot some of them down. None of them ever made any kind of impact. Netanyahu thanked U.S. President Joe Biden for bringing that alliance together, as well as his predecessor, Donald Trump, for brokering the Abraham Accords. See, Democrats and Republicans, you can get together. You can work together, but nothing will benefit you, the voter. And look, I get why there are Democrat and Republican voters. It's what you've been trained to do. The media and our institutions have successfully trained a lot of our fellow Americans into believing that this is okay, that it's perfectly normal to be subservient to a two-party system that couldn't give a damn about you. And I get it. It's what makes you feel comfortable. It is what you identify as. But tell me, after the pageantry and the glory is over, and the election season's all wrapped up, and all the wonderful signs and flags are starting to weather away, did anything improve? I mean, again, Democrat and Republican voters. Look right here. Again, it's Joe Biden and Trump. Netanyahu's thanking them both. He's thanking them both. He's thanking them both. Both. He loves them both equally. Why? Because both parties are owned by lobby groups and corporate donors. AIPAC, the military-industrial complex, the prison-industrial complex, big oil, big pharma. I mean, come on, wake up, folks. Wake up, people. Don't you realize a two-party system doesn't have your best interests at heart? So continuing on, I think we should call it the Abraham Alliance, he said, of the proposed NATO-like bloc. According to the Israeli prime minister, countries at peace with West Jerusalem or that intend to do so ought to join the bloc, as Iran is a threat to them all. Well, gee, since you already said it, here's a hypothetical scenario. What happens if Iran says, hey, we want to join that bloc too? When we fight Iran, we are fighting the most radical, murderous enemy of the United States, Netanyahu said. When Israel fights and works to prevent a nuclear Iran, we are not only protecting ourselves, and I love this right here. This is good. We are protecting you, he argued. Our enemies are your enemies. Our fight is your fight. Our victories will be your victories. Netanyahu told U.S. lawmakers, I know that America has our back. Billions of dollars going in. Billions. That's B-I-L-L-I-O-N-S. There we go. Billions of dollars. The U.S. has given the military. Sorry about that stutter here. The U.S. has given military aid to Israel throughout the 9 months war with Hamas. And Netanyahu declared the Palestinian armed groups raid out of Gaza. Pressed by Palestinian Arab Americans in Biden's party, his government has proposed a 3-stage ceasefire plan to the enclave, but West Jerusalem has been reluctant to accept it. Israel will not stop until it has destroyed the military capabilities of Hamas, ended its rule in Gaza, and recovered all captives in the October 7th attack, Netanyahu said, adding that That's what total victory means, and we will settle for nothing less. So more women and children are going to die, more men are going to die, more people are going to starve. That's what total victory means, man. That's what it means, people. But Netanyahu faced protests, boycott in Washington. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been greeted by crows of pro-Palestinian protesters on the streets of Washington, D.C. as he arrived to ask for more support from the U.S. Congress. Jesus Christ, aren't we giving you billions of dollars already? What are you doing with all that money, sunshine? Wednesday's address to Netanyahu's force before the U.S. lawmakers, surpassing the previous historic record of 3 speeches by British leader Winston Churchill. Capitol Hill was fortified ahead of the event, with dozens of Washington streets closed and patrolled by heavily armed police, some brought in from other jurisdictions. They're not going to allow another Butler, Pennsylvania to happen, okay? Free Palestine, stop war crimes in Gaza, end all aid to Israel, and war criminal were just some of the signs carried by protesters who picketed the Capitol, the White House, and Watergate Hotel, where Netanyahu was reportedly staying. Netanyahu, come outside, we're arresting you for genocide, chanted one group of demonstrators. Overnight, groups of activists poured red dye into the fountains outside the congressional complex and projected signs on nearby buildings calling the Israeli leader a war criminal. Because say it with me, folks, what could possibly go wrong? Say it with me. Now, as it stands, too, I just want to pull this up here. This is a video in which reportedly DC Palestinian Youth Movement released maggots and crickets were released throughout the Watergate Hotel where Netanyahu is staying. The protesters also pulled multiple fire alarms throughout the night. This is an utter security failure, according to 120. Hold on, let me just mute this here. So, as you can see, this is one of the many responses. There's always a consequence and actions to everything. But I do want to pull this up here, because these are just a few short speeches from Netanyahu, in which he called October 7th 27 9/11s.
20 9/11s in one day.
29 9/11s in one day.
20 9/11s in one day. And these monsters, they raped women, they beheaded men, they burnt babies alive.
And the response is killing hundreds of thousands of men, women, and children, having a genocide and starvation happening. All what this is doing is leading the foundations for the next war.
They refuse to make the simple distinction between those who target terrorists and those who target civilians, between the democratic state of Israel and the terrorist thugs of Hamas. We recently learned from the National Security Director, U.S. Director of National Intelligence, that Iran is funding and promoting anti-Israel protests in America. They want to disrupt America.
Now, the thing is, okay, you're saying that Iran's got that cash money to disrupt everything. Proof and evidence. Evidence and proof. Now, yes, countries play this game with each other in which they want to have disruption or benefit happen to them. But the thing is, you know, if you haven't been paying attention, even the United States does things like this. They all do. All these countries play this game. But last I checked, according to my notes, AIPAC has the biggest weight of them all. Almost like policy decisions are being decided. After all, Representative Thomas Massie, who was one of the few Republicans to actually not attend, has said so publicly numerous times, in which he has said how Congress has babysitters, AIPAC babysitters, how Congress has people who observe over them, and how in turn AIPAC also looks over legislation in which our elected officials get to vote on, so long as it gets the green light from the babysitters. So tell me again, diehard Democrat voters and diehard Republican voters, because I'm calling you both out, because I am a double hater. I don't like the Democratic Party and I don't like the Republican Party. There's no big difference between the two. Tell me again, and I want to hear from a diehard Democrat, and I want a proper thesis, paragraphs, beginning, middle, and end. I want a real good conclusion. Why we have a democracy. And that goes for a conservative too, a Republican. Go ahead. Tell me again. Tell me again how we have one. I want to see how much the propaganda is really in deep in their minds, because my fellow Americans, things aren't going to be very good anytime soon. And the way things are going, it's abundantly clear that you don't have a say in this election. I mean, case in point, look at the Democratic primary. Did anyone's vote really matter this year? The answer is no.
So these protesters burn American flags even on the 4th of July. And I wish to salute the fraternity brothers at the University of North Carolina who protected the American flag against these anti-Israel protesters.
I also want to pull this up here as well, because I think it's abundantly clear that, hey, folks, why not add one more war in the mix? 2024 has been a crazy year. Why not bring it into 2025 as well?
For Iran, Israel is first, America is next. So when Israel fights Hamas, we're fighting Iran. When we fight Hezbollah, we're fighting Iran. When we fight the Houthis, we're fighting Iran. And when we fight Iran, we're fighting the most radical and murderous enemy of the United States of America. And one more thing. When Israel acts to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons that could destroy Israel and threaten every American city, every city that you come from.
You know, I swear I heard something like this way, way, way back in the year 2001. You know, there was this guy, the media was really hyping it up to be this real bad guy. First name Saddam, last name Hussein. According to this guy, George Bush Jr., who, get this, was president of these United States, said that Iraq and Saddam Hussein was going to be launching these weapons of mass destruction in the air, and it was going to come all the way here to America. And then kaboom, that's it. Oh, no. Then there was a war, and I hope you're sitting down for this. Those weapons of mass destruction have never been found. I don't know about you, but I think our intel services either one, got it wrong, or two, maybe they're not looking hard enough. It's what, 2024? I'm sure there's a reasonable excuse, people. There has to be. They wouldn't make out nothing just for good old shites and giggles, would they? Would they? Let's have democracy in the chat. I know, controversial statement to make. Type 1 for Kit. We would never be lied to. Our media would never lie to us. Our politicians would never lie to us. They're honorable people, Kit. Shame on you. You awful man. I type 2, man, we've been lied to for so long, I stopped caring. I wonder how many twos we'll get in the chat. I wonder.
We're not only protecting ourselves, we're protecting you. My friends, if you remember one thing from the speech, remember this. Our enemies are your enemies. Our fight is your fight, and our victory will be your victory.
If they're your enemies, how come we cannot make peace? And if they are your enemies, how come we cannot mediate so that there can be peace? Perhaps I'm too much of a dreamer. Perhaps I'm too much of an idealist. And perhaps I am wrong. After all, humanity, we are the world heavyweight champions of going to war against each other. I hope there could be peace. Maybe there could be dialogue, understanding. I mean, it doesn't have to be endless destruction. It could be something else altogether. Wouldn't that be a sight? But see, that's a bridge too far. Now, Representative Thomas Macy was one of the few Republican politicians that did not show up. Dare I say it, he's one of the few good ones, I could say. But I want to go too far with that. But remember these words that he said on Tucker Carlson's show not too long ago. It's a certain thing about AIPAC babysitters that you guys must remember and never forget.
They're not registered.
Is there any other Republican who has your views on this?
Well, I have Republicans who come to me on the floor and say, I wish I could vote with you today. Yours is the right vote, but I would just take too much flack back home. And I have Republicans who come to me and say, that's wrong what AIPAC is doing to you. Let me talk to my AIPAC person.
Babysitter. I know, folks. I know. Listen, if you're a Republican watching this show for the first time or hate watching, or if you're a liberal Democrat, hate watching the show or first time joining in, why do you think you matter to your politician? And why do you think you matter when you put on your red t-shirt or blue t-shirt? Don't you get it? You're just a puppet. And I'm not talking down to you. I'm really trying to say, hey, I'm here. I can hear you. Hold on. You know what? If I'm going to do this properly, I'm going to do this properly indeed. Hey, diehard Democrat voter, diehard Republican voter. I'm going to play the rest of this video of Thomas Massey. I'm going to rewind it from the very beginning. But I need you to pay very close attention to my words. You're in an abusive relationship. Take off your sunglasses and show me that shiner that you got on your eye. No matter what you do, no matter what you tweet on the good old Twitter or post on Facebook or the Instagrams or whatever, you don't have a say in how policy is decided. Why do you think everybody's lives are miserable? It's because the donors who buy our politicians supersede you, the voter. Take a hint, please, and leave that abusive spouse.
Wish I could vote with you today. Yours is the right vote, but I would just take too much flack back home. And I have Republicans who come to me and say, that's wrong what AIPAC is doing to you. Let me talk to my AIPAC person. By the way, everybody but me has an AIPAC person.
What does that mean, an AIPAC person?
It's like your babysitter, your AIPAC babysitter, who is always talking to you for AIPAC. They're probably a constituent in your district, but they are, firmly embedded in AIPAC. And
every member has something like this?
I don't know how it works on the Democrat side, but that
it's the exact same thing. It's safe to assume it's the exact same way. In fact, yeah, I'm 100% certain. It's the exact same way. Hey, folks, in matter of fact, you know what? I could be wrong. Perhaps you, the audience, have a far more clearer picture than I do. Type 3 for Kit, it's a little bit different because the Democrats, they're smart. Type 4, no, man. Click, copy, paste. Click, copy, paste is the exact same way. I wonder how many 4s will be in the chat. I wonder.
That's how it works on the Republican side. And when they come to DC, you go have lunch with them, and they've got your cell number, and you have conversations with them. So I've had
that's absolutely crazy.
I've had 4 members of Congress say, I'll talk to my AIPAC person. And it's literally what we call them, my AIPAC guy. I'll talk to my AIPAC guy and see if I can get him to, dial those ads back.
Why have I never heard this before?
You've heard it before, Tucker. Come on, don't lie.
Doesn't benefit anybody. Why would they want to tell their constituents that they've basically got a buddy system with somebody who's representing a foreign country? It doesn't benefit the congressman for people to know that, so they're not going to tell you that.
Have you seen any other country do anything like this? Like
no.
Russia obviously determines the outcome of our elections. We keep hearing that. Does anyone have a Putin guy that they talk to?
Wouldn't it be funny if there was a Putin guy? There ain't no Putin guy. There's no Iranian guy. There's no North Korean guy. Can you imagine if there was like a North Korean super PAC? How dare you insult their leader? Shame on you, politician. If there was a Russian guy, you have 10 minutes to live. Say goodbye to your loved ones. Putin is not happy with you. I mean, come on. Come on. Let's be real here, folks. North Korea, Iran, and Russia ain't coming into our Israel is, though. Israel's involved. Oh, they're so in deep, they can't even pull out.
Not only do they not have a Putin guy, look, they don't have a Britain guy. They don't have an Australian guy. They don't have a Germany dude. Like, it's the only country that does this, that has somebody that like uniform.
Well, according to Representative Kinky, I have to okay it through my Russian guy. Hey, listen, Kinky, please tell your Russian guy, don't hurt us.
I mean, I guarantee there's some spreadsheet at APAC where where the APAC dude is who's matched up with the congressman is there, and then all the congressman's votes on the issue. Oh, has the congressman been to Israel?
Also, love the overrated guy. Hey, listen, I got an Italian guy. I got Fat Tony and Joey Numbers. They're good guys. They're from Brooklyn. Okay, but you got to keep your mouth quiet. Okay. Fast Pete will be there, and he don't like newcomers.
There's some spreadsheet at APAC where where the APAC dude is who's matched up with the congressman is there, and then all the congressman's votes on the issue. Oh, has the congressman been to Israel? They pay for trips for congressmen and their spouses to go to Israel. I'm not the only Republican who hasn't taken the APAC trip to Israel, but I'm probably one of a dozen that hasn't taken that trip, and the other ones just haven't got around to it.
What's the trip like? Do you know?
It's kind of like, I think, vacation-y. You go see the wall, you go see the sites, things like that.
It's such a great, I must say, it's such a great country. Jerusalem, especially, is just such a wonderful place that's got to have a big effect.
You go like swim in the Dead Sea.
Yeah,
like,
I've done that.
Yeah.
Not on an APAC trip, but
right.
I would recommend it to anyone.
Are you sure it wasn't an APAC trip?
I paid for it.
Are you sure, Tucker? Because Putin called you out, man, trying to go for the CIA. Come on, buddy.
No, I mean, it's just funny. I mean, I am a legit lover of Israel, of the place Israel. Right. I like the people, and I love the food, and like the whole thing is so great.
Look,
but that's distinct from the government of Israel, which is just a foreign government.
My sense is the people are very entrepreneurial.
Totally.
They're publicly minded. They care about their country. That they're generally good people, right?
That's certainly been my experience in trips there, for sure. It's great. It's just I think it's probably one of my favorite, maybe my all-time favorite place to go with my family. But that's just a completely different thing from taking orders from its government.
Oh, yeah. Everybody's nice until you decide not to follow the orders. And remember, folks, if you don't follow orders, you're called a useful idiot. Because remember, all of our congressmen and women are owned. Even Fetterman, of all people, of all the times, actually decided to wear a suit and tie for this event. If you haven't seen it, it's pure gold. Fetterman wearing a suit, something he'd never do, because he probably got a knock on his door. Hey, Fetterman, don't you dare show up in no fake suit and tie or a sweater. You put on a proper clothing attire and dress like a big boy.
Officially become Iran's useful idiots. Some of these protests officially become.
Now, Rashid Tlaib is probably one of the very few people to actually show up here. But just getting an idea of how things will play out. I want to play this video here of Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, who is, quote unquote, Biden's successor. Again, we will see how the DNC convention plays out. But this was her response in regards to how, and again, this is November of 2023. November of 2023, just so you guys can see the months and year this is being played at. Nothing has changed. Now, these were her statements last year in November.
Madam Vice President, Israel bombed the densely populated Jabalia refugee camp in northern Gaza for the second time in 2 days yesterday. Has the Biden-Harris administration reached out to discuss with Israel the bombing of the camp? And do you and President Biden consider the camp a legitimate military target or is it acceptable collateral damage in Israel's efforts to defeat Hamas?
So let me start with this. I have seen, as you have, I'm sure, the images, the photographs of the loss of civilian life in Gaza, and it is heartbreaking. The injury and death to children. I have a friend who I talked with recently who has family in Gaza.
She's got a friend. Isn't that convenient? All these politicians always have a friend of a certain group or culture or religion. They always have a friend. Hey, when a politician says that, I have a black friend. I have a Palestinian friend. I have this type of friend, that type of friend. Do you believe them when they say those words? Type 5 for Kit. These politicians speak to all sorts of people. And yes, they do have some friends. How dare you? Type 5 if that's what you believe. A type 6, my favorite number of them all, if that's one bold-faced lie, because I've heard that story so many times. I've got a friend. Oh, yeah, I got some good friends. Some of my best friends are X, Y, and Z.
And has lost a number of the members of her family, innocent civilians. So let me start by saying that it is absolutely tragic when there is ever anywhere any loss of innocent life, of innocent civilians, of children. And there is no word that I can offer you that that justifies any other feeling in terms of the loss of that life. It's tragic.
And how tragic it is, because that was in November. The death toll is now far, far higher. But I do want to pull up this article here because it will lead us into Biden's final speech, or dare I say it, his final address to the American people, or at least as it stands right now, about why he dropped out. But groups demand probe of Israeli influence operation targeting Americans. Wow, so we're being targeted. Ain't that special? Over 2 dozen organizations on Wednesday demanded that the Biden administration launch a multi-agency investigation to recent reporting that the Israeli government is engaging in illicit social media influence operations targeting U.S. elected officials and U.S. civil society. Pointing to June reports by the New York Times, Haaretz, and The Guardian, the groups, including the Center for International Policy, Code Pink, Democracy for the Arab World Now, National Iranian American Council, U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights, Action, and Win Without War, wrote to President Joe Biden and the Departments of Homeland Security, Justice, and State. As Israel began waging war on the Gaza Strip in retaliation for the Hamas-led October 7th attack, the country's Ministry of Diaspora Affairs allocated about $2 million to the operation and hired Stoic, a political marketing firm in Tel Aviv, to carry it out, the Times reported June 5th, citing related documents and unnamed Israeli officials. Although the Israeli military denied involvement in the campaign, and Stoic didn't respond to any requests for comment, the newspaper noted that at its peak, it used hundreds of fake accounts that posted as real Americans on X, Facebook, and Instagram to post pro-Israeli comments. The accounts focused on U.S. lawmakers, particularly ones who are black and Democrats. Identity politics at its finest. As The Guardian reported on June 24th, that effort is only one of many such campaigns coordinated by the ministry. The newspaper detailed a sprawling relaunch of a controversial Israeli government program initially known as Kalela Shlomo, I hope I said that right, designed to carry out what Israel called mass conscious activities targeted largely at the U.S. and Europe. Concert, and now known as Voices of Israel, previously worked with groups spearheading a campaign to pass so-called anti-BDS state laws that penalize Americans for engaging in boycotts or other nonviolent protests of Israel, The Guardian explained, referring to the Palestinian-led boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. In its latest incarnation, as part of a hardline and sometimes covert operation by the Israeli government to strike back at student protests, human rights organizations, and other voices of dissident. According to the newspaper Voices, latest activities were conducted through nonprofits and other entities that often do not disclose donor information. Ain't that special? So now, folks, you don't have a say in your fair republic. And speaking of our fair republic, it's abundantly clear that something is going on and that our entire system is one big joke, a clown show. Give it up for you know it, you love him, Joe 30330.
A cause of American democracy itself must unite to protect it. You know, in recent weeks, it's become clear to me that I need to unite my party in this critical endeavor. I believe my record as president, my leadership in the world, my vision for America's future, all merited a second term. But nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy. That includes personal ambition. So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation. It's the best way to unite our nation. A cause of American democracy.
Now, unfortunately, folks, this president seems to be living in his own reality, his own dimension. For he has the audacity to say that throughout all of his hard work, he has been trying to improve our lives. All the while, we've been stuck in endless wars, a genocide happening in Gaza, money and politics running amok, politicians doing insider trading. And the sad fact is, the president and vice president were not there. Congress was there. Majority of them that were there, Democrats and Republicans. But the president, or soon-to-be former president, and vice president, who's now apparently the successor to Biden, were not present at all. Have we become the Roman Empire, where the office of presidency has become so little value, in which it has been turned into a seat in which anyone can buy? What a sad state of affairs. Last I checked, that didn't go too well for the Romans and later on the Byzantines, but hey, that's what history books are there for. It's supposed to teach us these lessons. Too bad we don't have leaders to really pay attention. Case in point, as history always likes to repeat itself, Joe Biden actually had the audacity to say such clever words like this.
You know, I will keep working to ensure America remains strong, secure, and the lead.
Does he even look like he's all there? How sad is it? You know, even Romulus Augustus at least put on a better front than this.
To ensure America remains strong, secure, and the leader of the free world. I'm the first president in this century to report to the American people that the United States is not at war anywhere in the world.
What?
We'll keep rallying a coalition of proud nations to stop Putin from taking over Ukraine and doing more damage. We'll keep NATO stronger, and I'll make it more powerful and more united than any time in all of our history. I'll keep doing the same for our allies in the Pacific.
Okay, we're not at war, even though billions of our dollars are going to these proxy wars, but somehow we're not at war, folks. So everybody take it easy. Take it easy. We're not at war. We're just in proxy wars. Big difference between the two. Huge fundamental difference. We're not at war anywhere else in the world. But there's always an important thing to look at the record. The record of said president. I want to pull up this tweet.
You know, in recent weeks, it's become clear to me that I need to unite my party in this critical endeavor. I believe my record as president, my leadership in the world, my vision for America's future, all merited a second term. But nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy. That includes personal ambition. So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation. It's the best way to unite our nation. You know, there is a time and a place for long years of experience in public life. there's also a time and a place for new voices, fresh voices, yes, younger voices.
That's not what you were saying before, not too long ago. And speaking of his successors, I think it's important for us to look at who his successor is. You know, I got to say, he has to be reading something from the teleprompter. He has to be reading something there. Something, if not anything. Case in point, here.
Sure.
Sorry for the delay.
Just a few months, the American people will choose the course of America's future. I made my choice. I've made my views known. I would like to thank our great Vice President Kamala Harris. She's experienced, she's tough, she's capable. She's been an incredible partner to me and a leader for our country. Now the choice is up to you, the American people. When you make that choice, remember the words of Benjamin Franklin hanging on my wall here in the Oval Office, alongside the busts of Dr. King and Rosa Parks and Cesar Chavez. When Ben Franklin was asked, as he emerged from the convention going on, whether the founders have given America a monarchy or republic, Franklin's response was, a republic, if you can keep it. A republic, if you can keep it. Whether we keep our republic is now in your hands. My fellow Americans, it's been the privilege of my life to serve this nation for over 50 years. Nowhere else on earth could a kid with a stutter, from modest beginnings in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and Claymont, Delaware, one day sit behind the resolute desk in the Oval Office as President of the United States. But here I am. That's what's so special about America.
You mean you bought your way in, Joe? APAC helped you out. Big Oil helped you out. Prison Industrial Complex helped you out. Big Pharma helped you out. The military industrial complex helped you out. The healthcare insurance industry helped you out. The Democratic establishment helped you out. Corporate media helped you out. And even your good friend Barack Obama helped you out. Even Bernie Sanders, that nutless cuck of a wonder, helped you out. Helped you out so you can get that office. After all, you one time said you would be gladly and happily prostitute yourself towards corporations and lobby groups, which you have done successfully. Honest to God, OnlyFans girls are wondering how you did it, Joe. So many years in Congress, and somehow, you made it in big. You'll be a case study for corruption for decades to come.
We're a nation of promise and possibilities, of dreamers and doers, of ordinary Americans doing extraordinary things. I've given my heart and my soul to our nation, like so many others. I've been blessed a million times in return with the love and support of the American people. I hope you have some idea how grateful I am to all of you. The great thing about America is here, kings and dictators do not rule, the people do. History is in your hands. The power is in your hands. The idea of America lies in your hands. You just have to keep faith, keep the faith. And remember who we are. We're the United States of America. And there's simply nothing beyond our capacity when we do it together. So let's act together, preserve our democracy. God bless you all. May God protect our troops.
And there it is, the stunning words of Joe Biden. After all, the decision to leave the 2024 race was about saving democracy. Then why'd you stay in for so long? Why did you stay in for so long? After all, it was all part of an act. The war in Gaza, an act. War in Ukraine, an act. In order to put up, defiance? To show people that you could be a wartime leader? But instead, you turned out to be a national disgrace. I mean, let's face it. Everybody knows at this point. Everybody knows. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody sees it firsthand. That good old Joe Biden wasn't that spring chicken. He was never that guy who was ever going to fight for us. He never was. And so many people gave their credibility to say that Joe Biden was going to turn the soul back to America. What a shame. What a sad, pathetic shame. But his decision to stay in, as was corporate media's decision, because they could have brought this up a year ago, 2 years ago. Hell, they could have brought it up earlier this year. But they went to bat for him because everybody assumed that the American people would be dumb enough not to pay attention. The election in November will be an inflection point for the country, U.S. President Joe Biden said in his first public speech after deciding not to seek a second term and endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris as his potential replacement. We'll see how that plays out in the DNC convention here in Chicago. Speaking from the Oval Office on Wednesday evening, Biden said that he is determined to unite the Democratic Party and pass the torch to a new generation. Going on to say that he revered this office, but I love my country more, Biden said, I believe my record as president, my leadership in the world, my vision for America's future all merit a second term. But nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy. We're a constitutional republic. That includes personal ambition. Well, then you have no business in Washington, D.C., because all of these politicians care about is where their career lands them 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, 10 years, 12 years, 14 years, 16 years, 20 years down the road. I mean, let's face it, folks. All these politicians do care about is their career and their money, because they like to get money. These are not honorable people, folks. Initially defined, Biden had eventually succumbed to pressure from top Democrats and major party donors who argued he was no longer capable of defeating Donald Trump. The concerns over the incumbent president's age and deteriorating health increased rapidly after his disastrous performance during a televised debate with Trump last month, when Biden appeared confused and struggled to finish his sentences. Well, that's the fate for Joe Biden. But before he goes, I hope you're all sitting down for this one. White House says, and yes, this came after Netanyahu's speech. White House says Biden will discuss closing final gaps of ceasefire hostage release deal in Netanyahu meeting. Now, I'm not one to decide how things will play out, but do you think anything's going to happen with this final gaps, final stages for a ceasefire? Type 7 for kit, they're going to iron out the final details and everything will be fine. A type 8, no, nothing will fundamentally change and more people will die. I wonder how many 8s will get in the chat. I wonder. So President Biden will discuss how to close the final gaps of a ceasefire and hostage deal with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu during a high-stakes meeting on Thursday, according to a U.S. official. Biden will meet with Netanyahu and families of hostages held in Gaza on Thursday. That will be tomorrow. Vice President Harris, who Biden endorsed for the 2024 Democratic presidential race after bowing out of the re-election, will also meet with Netanyahu on Thursday in a separate meeting. Hold on. I didn't read that properly. I'm sorry. It's late at night. Vice President Kamala Harris will also meet with Netanyahu on Thursday in a separate meeting. Hold on. In case you just tuned in, Vice President Kamala Harris, Joe Biden's successor, the one in which all these Democrats are foaming over and having a honeymoon hard-on for, she will also meet with Netanyahu on Thursday in a separate meeting. Why not be there with Joe Biden as a whole? Why not? Why not? The meetings will involve a very substantive and detailed discussion on the ceasefire and hostage release deal currently under negotiation between Hamas and Israel, the U.S. official said. What I expect the conversation to be tomorrow is about these remaining gaps and kind of how we close them and what the parameters will be. The official added that the framework of the deal is there and that they only need to work out the details, although the agreements so far are only for the first phase of the deal, which involves releasing the most vulnerable hostages for Palestinian prisoners, along with a temporary ceasefire. Temporary. Keyword there is temporary. You know what? Let's look at the big book of words. Temporary. What does the word temporary mean? Because after all, temporary is temporary. What is it? What does it mean? Temporary. Definition. Let's go ahead. Temporary. Lasting for only limited period of time. Not permanent. Excuse me, sneezing live on air, my biggest fear. Continuing on, you're now in the implementation arrangements about how it'll actually work day to day, the official said. So that is a pretty intense negotiation. It's actually ongoing. But again, we think the pieces are coming together, and it's time to move to close this out. A second phase will be negotiated during the first, but it would include negotiations on how to end the war and release the remaining hostages. The official said any lingering issues for the first phase are resolvable and are not unbridgeable problems. What is left unbridgeable and is not something that's going to take an indefinite period to actually bridge, the official said, saying that there would be a lot of activity in the coming week. Netanyahu addressed Congress on Wednesday in nearly an hour-long speech that called the U.S. and Israel to stand by each other against Iran. The Israeli leader said that he was confident in reaching a deal to free hostages, but otherwise did not address the topic in the speech. Say it with me, folks. What could possibly ever go wrong? How could it go wrong? So what can we take away from this? The speech that Netanyahu gave, it's abundantly clear. Our politicians, our paid actors, our quote-unquote representatives, U.S. senators, who are supposed to fight for us, we're there en masse to be subservient, obedient people because, after all, they can't think for themselves because their babysitters have made it very clear that they should never think for themselves. And yet we have created a system in which we think, the people think, that by participating in electoral politics, somehow we make a change. How we make a change and how we break away from this system is building movements and organizations not connected to Washington, D.C., fighting for citizen ballot initiatives, and breaking away from the two-party system and actually, dare I say it, abolishing money in politics and abolishing all political parties. If we don't do this, we're going to get more of the same. And as we all grow older, we need to realize that if we don't actually step up and defend our republic, what is left will turn into something far more disfigured and disgusting. And from Biden's speech, what can we take away from that is that we see a career politician who's finally been forced to be pushed out. He never had the best interests of the people at heart. He didn't care about the people. None of these politicians do. They're all owned by their lobby groups and their, well, donors. So Joe Biden's speech was nothing more than hot air. Now, I don't know if he'll remember what he said, but we must never forget how embarrassing our political system is, how embarrassing our quote-unquote media is, and all of our institutions and experts are, when so many people went to bat for Joe Biden, not only during the primary, but throughout his 3.5 years of being president of these United States. Our media said he was okay. Elitist pundits said he was okay. Top-ranking journalists said he was okay. Democratic leadership said that he was okay. And you even had large, influential, quote-unquote, independent media networks saying that he was okay. If that's the definition of okay, then we're not okay. We have been tricked. We've been lied to. We've been stolen from. We've been abused enough. Biden's speech is abundantly clear to me. We don't have a say in who becomes president. No matter what happens on election night, if you choose to vote or not vote, once you do that, the situation is now out of your hands and you are truly free until you have to wait for the next 4 years if you choose to participate in the next presidential election cycle. But this is not how a functioning republic or any democracy should act. We need to start waking up, people, and being more involved. And that means each of you must take the social responsibility to contribute to a better future. If we don't, then we'll be here again talking about how dangerous and sick our whole system is. But something tells me we're running out of time. And if we want to be better, we have to lead. Don't expect those jagoffs in Washington, D.C. to stick their necks out for you. Those people in D.C., they're paid to applaud, they're paid to follow orders, and they're paid to be good servants. They're not paid to look out for you. If you think that this story, if it remains the same, is going to have a happy ending, then you're not paying attention. With that being said, my lovelies, my mornings, my sunshines, I'm going to see you guys tomorrow morning. Excuse me. Woo, at 9 a.m. Central. Excuse me. Need to get some water. But I'll see you guys sharp tomorrow morning. Before I end this live stream, I do want to at least share with all of you some music from Jett. I think this song is very apropos for what we're dealing with. And dare I say it, maybe we could get to a better future eventually in time. But I want to thank all of you so much for tuning in. We have about 200 beautiful people watching us. Before you leave, could we get to 200 likes? That would be ever so nice. Until then, take good care of yourselves and each other. My name is Kit. This has been Hard Lens Media. Keep your heads on a swivel, drink that water, and let us all do what we can to someday build a better future. Won't be today, but it can be someday. Peace. And I'll see you guys sharp tomorrow morning.
SWAT team took your neighbor today. Watch them as they walked him away. You told yourself extremists come in all different shapes. Met his eyes and lowered your gaze. Is it too late for us to ever change? When we are collecting the dust of better days. They're always watching us, but we're never safe. We're not meant to be safe, not meant to escape. We aren't meant to wake. Sheriff stopped your daughter today. Pepper sprayed her twice in the face. He must have had good reason if he'd treat her that way. At least that's what they've taught you to say. But is it too late for us to ever change? Once we're collecting the dust of better days. They're always watching us, but we're never safe. We're not meant to feel safe, not meant to escape. We aren't meant to wake. Feds arrived and had you detained. Said you'd made some posts they want changed. Tased you till you felt like you'd forgotten your name, or life before they had you contained. Oh, life before they had you contained. SWAT team took your neighbor today.